Our topic of the week, everybody, we'd like to kind of discuss about importance of building online relationships in terms of, your trust, your friendships. So I wanted to start off by saying that I've been on the app for a long time. And so part of like the digital life, the biggest thing I'll start off is with like a challenge. And my challenge is battling patterns of like known patterns that things will happen to known patterns against the chances of always like renewal, right? With like new people that come in and do the exact same kind of thing over and over in like a community. And then because I'm like the front of that community, I find it hard to battle those things because you know what's ultimately best, and then you also want to be like kind and inviting. So I find that when you're consistently trying to build new relationships, there's a lot of areas that I struggle with always worrying about the same thing happening that it did before. So I find that's been a challenge of mine. And I find that's like, I think over time how I like have a hard time like fortifying relationships, and the app shows me like a very fast pace. And because it's like a very fast pace, I find it like, I don't know, I find it like difficult to slow down because I'm always wrapped around in it.
For me, some of my issues are finding people that align with my core value. I find that often when I go live, people try to hijack it, so to speak. My so-called friends want to try to like brute force their way in and try to like take the reins and run away with my own life. I find that is a struggle for me because as being the main creative, the main host of that particular space, I find that giving up control is like almost like a not acceptable option, and people find that it is offensive sometimes. And I have to put my foot down with my friends and be like, no, this is my space. You don't get to, run away with it.
Yeah, there's like a barrier to entry, and there's limitations, boundaries, and all that stuff. I want to preface this, like I wanted to hear from both you guys first on your initial thoughts, but I also want to start this off by talking about something that is important to me, and it's like take the good with the bad type thing, because I constantly talk about that stuff. And part of what I'm battling with is daily reminding myself of embrace the bad stuff, because man, does that ever suck when you like get wrapping your head around embracing the bad stuff. But I recently missed out on something that like I already apologized for, and without getting too much context, like for everybody else, you guys know what I'm talking about. And like I issued the apology, and it was almost like a trigger for me. It wasn't that I wasn't taking this important, like I wasn't placing enough importance on this Sunday thing. It was extremely important to me, but I feel like I was lacking in my effort, and that showed up in what happened. So it was kind of like a catalyst, because I've been doing research ever since that point on what we're talking about today. So it's kind of like something that I screwed up caused other people involved to feel a certain way, and I'm not sure what those feelings are, and I can't do anything about it. What's done is done. But I embraced the fuck up and went, maybe I need to throw a little more effort than what I'm doing, because there's obviously effort coming from other places that I'm really not taking stock of, I think, and I need to put more effort into it. So I buckled down and placed importance in the relationships that I'm building in this community and for this Sunday morning, which is why I went live this morning before this to build a room to preface that and say, hey, I'm going live in a bit. I'm trying to put more effort into it, plus the research that I did building up to this with all the questions and stuff. So I just wanted to put that out there first.
Cool.
Even though it happened, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise that it did happen. So my bad, but
yeah. So why do you? Okay. So like just trying to stay on topic. So how does that? So then tying that back, like how does that affect you building your relationships online, kind of thing? Like to kind of to bring it back into.
it's
So like what's like an approach? What's you meet someone new, like what's the area of tackling, like how do we tackle the unknown?
I think it's different for everybody. Like what's your barrier to entry for what you call a friend, and how do you, like it's what Bite Boss said as well, like do people align with your core values? How do you find that out in the limited conversations that you have with your chat? Sometimes you need to co-host or guest box, and it's a feeling out thing. And like my first interaction in your room was somebody sent me an invite and I came in and you said all of these things that I hadn't realized would get passed on by other people, and it was an instant alignment with core values based on what you said, which in my mind gave me a basis for a relationship. But it's literally just me, not even in a box at that point. I was in your chat and you were not blowing sunshine up my ass, but you were saying, this is what I've heard and this is what I believe, and I think we're on the same page, and that's awesome. And I just went, cool. And I think that's a great basis to start a relationship. And then me watching Bite Boss interact in the chat as well was very similar, along with Jules, of course. I believe it was Jules that sent me the invite, multiple invites. And it was every time I saw the invite, it was your live was ended or I was going live. And it was that one interaction that just kind of sparked it. And I think that's important, whether we initiate or whether the other person initiates. It's important to take stock of how important those interactions are, and that's in our mind. Where do we prioritize that? Like, where do we put that in? How do we look at a friendship, whether it's online or in person? Because it should be similar. It should be like, what do you look like? What do you look for in a partner, a friend, a business partner? It should be all very
Yeah, so like, and that's what we're, like more directly though, like what's your strategy to kind of handling it, right? Like to get more like direct rather than chasing like a round of like potentials and stories. You know what I mean? Like what's a direct way of, you meet someone new, how are you going to handle that, building that loyalty and friendship, and especially when it's in an online case. Like that's
Like, for example, for me, I start off with a baseline of trust. I have an assumption of like a baseline of you'll respect me, I'll respect you, right? If you violate that, all right, red flag. You get 3 red flags, there's the door. That's usually how I start, and then I evaluate over time. You don't become my friend overnight. You almost earn that spot, to be honest. Like, you sit there and you go, okay, great, this person has a good vibe with me. Perfect. That's a checkbox. Okay, we move to the next thing. Then you go, okay, we have similar we get each other's humor, because that's also important. If you never get somebody's jokes, then like obviously there's an incompatibility. So then you can say a joke or whatever, and then people get it. Great. Then communication. Do they communicate the same way that you do, or similar, or have an understanding of how you communicate? Because no one communicates the same. We can communicate similarly, but we don't all have the same way of expressing ourselves. Right? If we're having a bad day, do you know if your friend's having a bad day? I know when my friends are having a bad day. I can tell. But do you? Do you know? Because that's ultimately the questions that I ask myself, right? Because if you've earned that right to be my friend, these are the things that I go out to go do to ensure that our communication and our bond stays strong, right? That's something that I do personally, like in my entire life. I'll go out of my way to learn your language, right? Just so I know the proper way to communicate with you, right?
Okay. Yeah, and so something with me is I'll try to start with a baseline of trust, and then, like I said, just because of what TikTok's allowed me to see, it's allowed me to see an audience in a great span. So I almost feel like there's only like so many paths, and then I have to be extra patient, because what ends up happening is and just like this app knows, right? Like, and I I've expressed this dearly so many times. There's not really like an amount of money someone can, support me with that's going to change really like my true opinion of like who they are, kind of thing. It can be clouding or whatnot, but I don't find that being like a trust building thing, because that can come and go. That's not really, that's something that revolves around the app, but it's not like a core. And then so what I've found is you have to almost like take a judgment as to how much time people are going to put back into you as well, to respect, and like that's how you slowly build that loyalty and that trust. Because if I'm pouring all my time into you and you're just kind of absorbing, do we really have like a back and forth that's going to create like a growing bond? And I found that over time, just because of the length of time, right? People come, people go, and then you see it at a fast pace. And then that's why like I get back to the same patterns again. So it's like the root is to always be as kind and compassionate at every step, because we always see the decisions people make, but we don't see like we see like the choices they made. They don't see their options though. So we see the end result, not the potential ways they could have gone. And so I find that to be always like interweaved. But like online relationships can change pretty quickly. So I don't, I've had that happen too, right? I've had years disappear in seconds, and days turn into years.
Yeah, it's building, just like building anything else. The smallest thing can cause issues with the foundation from the beginning or later on. There's things that can just shake things to the core and cause it to fall apart. And it could be small. It just depends on your tolerance and what it was built on in the first place, and what you consider to be major, like a red flag or an issue. Or I think there's levels to red flags as well. Like Bite Boss was saying, there's, you get three, like there's a red flag, maybe you get three flags, but maybe it's the severity of the flag as well. I think it's rated, like how severe was that red flag that you experienced? Does that negate any other red flags and just be like, oh, that was one red flag, that was pretty bad, so forget it? Do you slowly let that come back, or is it off limits completely, or is there like two smaller degrees of red flags that happen after that? Like it's very individual, right? It's based on the foundation of. I find it's not always initial interactions either. It takes time sometimes. Sometimes it's like instant, just like out in real life. Other times it's a consistency thing.
For me, red flags are about respect. Honestly, that's what it comes down to, regardless of what the red flag was. Right? You don't you don't like your friend tells you to go for coffee and they don't show up. That's a red flag. You know, because it's a disrespect of your time. Right? You know, they ask you to move and they, you know, you show up and they're not ready. That's a red flag, right? Again, disrespect of time. You know, they and that could go either way. But for me, that's serious. Respect is a serious thing because it's if they're going to disrespect you once, they're going to disrespect you hundreds and hundreds of times. Situational reasons, like, you know, they give you a heads up. Hey, my mom went to the hospital. Granted, they communicated, right? Not a red flag. You know, hey, I got to work. Not a red flag. You pre-told me. You know, I'm not sitting there waiting for you to show up, right? Like that. For me, I've run my entire life around this, and it has never once bitten me in the ass.
Okay.
Having that flatline respect and understanding, and I portray that to everyone that I communicate with. It's not something that's like hidden or like secretive. You know, you do it to me, and I'll be like, "Hey, man, like that's one." You know, straight up, and I'll give you the reason why. You know, because I felt you X, Y, Z.
But that's without doing that though, are you respecting yourself?
Yeah, because you're
Like
putting boundaries.
no, well, like I mean, if you don't do that,
Oh,
like if you're not to express what you feel, you're not respecting yourself, and that's part of like the point of all this is so for everyone listening, it's to make sure that you know while we're building relationships and everything else, you got to make sure that you know there's a give and take, but you got to respect um, yourself as a person. And that's something I think a lot of us sacrifice, right? Trying to be um, endless. I think the best way to say it is endlessly, like an endless give, right? Where it's good to give, it's good to be good to people and kind, but I think like the endless part, and so I think that's part of what goes into that's what makes long-term relationships like sounder, right? Obviously, is the continual. I'm losing my train of thought here, but um,
I
that
was just
loyalty. Go ahead.
I was just gonna reference the whole TikTok trend of like we listen and we don't judge.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's it for sure. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's definitely something of consistent balance, but yeah, respecting yourself is like a huge thing that I want people to. It's a big lesson that I've like been like slowly learning, and I think like that comes from a community standpoint, right? You let too much happen that you're in control of, and it doesn't become that environment that you set out to build. So I think that's like a part of building that safeguard, right, for your community. It's also really important because how we build relationships for my case is how it affects my community in the future, whether tomorrow, in a year, but it's a constant like balance, right, to make sure people, myself, and then the overall direction of the community. And I find that you know that ties me just back into saying like I get a lot of like I've had a lot of patterns, right, just from experience, and so that ends up it often clouds my mind. It makes me have to always pull back again and just think.
When you like to speak on the same thing, I think it's also individual with when you express those feelings, like when you express that, hey, you did something I don't like. I think it's very individual. Some people have the emotional intelligence, and you understand that by interacting with the person, that they're aware they did something wrong. You don't need to say it. It's an unspoken thing. Other people need to be told, hey, I don't appreciate that. That's not a friend thing to do. But like to steer away from that, how when you get to that point, do you have the conversation to cut that relationship off? Do you just cold turkey, not talk, like no contact? That's a thing. That was another TikTok thing, right? No contact for 30 days. It's so difficult, whatever, with your ex or whatever. I think that applies to friends too. Do you no contact, or do you have that conversation? Hey, I can't, you're not healthy for my life. Like it's two different very schools of thought. Do you not say anything and just not contact them anymore? Are they the type of person that is going to reach out and go, hey, what's up? Or are they not the person that reaches out first? Or do you have that conversation and say, this doesn't benefit either of us? I'm done.
For me, I'm a person that's straight up. I often will wait for the right time, but do communicate rather effectively. I need to cut somebody off. I usually sit them down and tell them why. And the reason why I tell them why is because then it gives them an opportunity to grow, if they choose to listen or not listen to what you have to say. That's their choice. But as long as I give them the opportunity to at least hear it, because we're here to grow as human beings, right? We're on this earth to elevate our understanding and grow more humble. Ultimately, at least that's how I feel this world to be. And if you don't give the person the opportunity to at least grow themselves, I think you're doing them a disservice at that point. So completely ghosting them is a completely disservice. I feel that the conversation can be awkward and can be full of anxiety. Totally understand that. But you have to look at it from an educational point of view and not a personal one. Be like, hey, listen, like, we don't match because of this, and I wish you the best. And I've had to do that in my life. I've had long-term relationships where I've had to be like, listen, like, we don't mesh anymore because this is where this went. And it's not easy by any means, but it truly is better off, I think, for them and for you.
So,
as a human.
Happens with family.
Does it ever go away? Like, if you delay that conversation, are your thoughts going to change? That's the other thing. Like, am I going to digest something from immediate to, usually it's, I try to run off of a 24-hour rule. That's been a golden rule I've told especially close friends, so that they know if something goes, if I go MIA or whatever about an issue, could be something personal, even positive, but I have a 24-hour rule about everything, because even we've all been in a sit down situation where you feel pressured to buy something or anything. And I have never had anything negative happen to me from walking away from that and taking that 24 hours. I've never had a deal expire within 24 hours that you're not given the opportunity to think about, especially, and just to tie everyone in, you get a job proposal, right? That, let's say you're pressured within 24 hours. The company's set up. They know the expectations. They know the game. They know everything. You're the new one in that situation. And if you feel that pressure in 24 hours, let's just say, and that's going to ruin your potential, that's not for you. That's not something waiting for you. Thus, the same, you can't wait 30 days and expect the same window of opportunity. 30 days is a long time, but 24 hours is one of those where it allows you to rethink how you feel about something. Because our emotions are driven by, sometimes it's chemical that gives us a feeling, just like trust, right? You get a feeling of mistrust with someone due to past traumatic events that have happened, right? And now, if you have that conversation, the quicker you have that conversation, the less you leave the murky waters unknown, right? And if the other person meets you in the middle, then great. If you have to put in an excessive amount of effort which shouldn't be required, then you but if you don't have that conversation when it's meant to be had, then people will never be sure of what you're thinking about.
Some people need that 24-hour block, and some people don't. If you came to me and said, listen, I need a day to think about this, respect. Again, that is communication. You need to process the information and digest it before formulating a plan. Me, I'm not a person who needs that.
Yeah.
Because I instantly analyze every situation in a cube. Right? So I pull myself out of it and I'm like, okay, from this angle it looks like this. From this angle it looks like this. But not a lot of people think like that. And I know that. And if anyone came to me and said I need a day, no problem. If you needed 30, I'd probably say, you know what? That's a little too much.
That's why, I'm pretty, I'll be pretty clear, right? Those are my, that's usually my golden. That's why I try not to instantly react about stuff. And then, I've had it happen though, because you play a 24-hour rule, other things happen that take your brain away from, and you want to make sure that you give, I had this situation lately, and, you express you just express yourself honestly, right? And if that gets accepted, that goes towards that trust and loyalty that you're going to continue to build in a friendship, right? That gets fractured going forward. Well, that's right down the middle of the stone. But I still, we all have. There's not one person I haven't met that doesn't have one rough edge around them. Like at some point, everybody's got something, and to say everybody's perfect, well, then there's the first issue, right? So that you're going to catch that rough spot once in a while on people. And you just have to remember too, was it your rough spot and their rough spot that extended out? Because normally would you have had that happen? Or was it just one of those things where you both kind of ticked the right way and bounced off each other kind of thing too? So that's you don't really know, we talk about, just to go into that, sorry, we all know about professions. And we know we'll never know everything about a profession. And we spend years on the exact same topic. Some people spend their 50 years literally working the same job. 50, they retire after 50 years of work at the same place doing the same thing. And they'll still walk out and say, I don't know everything. And then to say we know everything about the people that we interact with, that's way more complicated to just an exponential degree. That's when it gets really hard, because we're not mathematicians to understand all those calculations. And so that's why 24-hour rule for me works best. But if you're able, you digest a little better in the moment. But if you don't communicate that, then yeah, we lose that trust, that loyalty, and then where's the safety net to the bottom of where that friendship where's the catch for that? And so I think that's all part of, for me, understanding people and building that catch net with every social relationship. I mean, personal, romantic, even. It's that same thing. Where's that catch at that very bottom of where I know it's trusted, it's safe. There's going to be no break past that, even past their flaws. That's the other thing, because everyone has flaws, but it has to mesh too, right?
It's very individual and it's very situation based. It's different for every person that's in your life, but it's also very situation based. Like you said, are you both having rough spots? Did you bounce off each other? It's like that, or are you both in states where you needed the same thing as each other and you both really connected and made a really strong connection. Was it genuine or not? Here's a question for like that I've been thinking about this week. Do you regularly take stock of your friend circle, like the people that are in your life, not just your friends, but your everybody, your professional, your friends, your intimate? Do you regularly take stock of that, even the online ones, and like go through and go, nope, 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 yep, yep, yep? Like, is that something that you do because it's a very healthy practice to do?
What do you mean?
And what are your like qualifications for that? Like, what do you look at?
Like, do you mean like determining who within the circle is my friend and who is not? Is that what you mean?
Who stays and who goes? Because it's very draining to divide your attention when that person is not beneficial, but you don't see that. Do you regularly look at the situation and go, is this person beneficial in my life? Not from like a monetary standpoint, or what is the relationship beneficial to you in the ways that you need? Are you benefiting that person? Is that person benefiting you? And it's not like everybody has to benefit you. It's, do you complement each other? Like, is it something that's going to add success to both people's lives? Or is it just kind of like, it's I don't even know, have a word to
listen. I look at this more of one simple thing. Does the person respect me, or do they not? If no, then I'll let them exist, but I won't give them the light of day. I won't treat them any disrespectfully, but I'm not going to put any energy towards uplifting them, going out of my way to communicate with them, or what have you. And my envisionment here is like going to college and having my best friend with me. And then our circle of friends, like, this is the envisionment in my head when I'm saying this. One person in that envisionment, I don't particularly get along with all that well, but we don't disrespect each other. They can stay. Because they might be somebody else's friend and somebody else's jive. Just because they don't jive with me directly doesn't necessarily mean they can't stay in the room. But if they are super disrespectful and they are calling out people's names, making fun of people, causing rift in the group, then there's the, hey man, or hey ma'am, like, you can't continue to do this because of X. And this is the cause of what you're causing. And if it continues after that, there's the door. That is my opinion of that whole topic. Because everyone may not get along with everybody, but as long as everyone has a mutual respect for each other, then it'll generally work.
Okay. I don't normally. I have such a fast moving group that will come in. I think partly it might be to do with the live environment because it slows down outside. But even in my outside life, I don't really. Oh, like, you might come across something that reminds you of someone. Oh, I haven't reached out to them. As long as I haven't really missed out on them reaching out to me and everything's kind of good, I try to keep always a positive demeanor with everybody. Because with social media, just a straight story, right? I've got people that I worked with as mechanics that still come in just to check out what I'm doing differently all of a sudden today, right? So you have these different groups where just because they're in your life doesn't mean they're in your life for your benefit. And I think that's the one thing that I often, like I said, it comes back to, like I stated right at the beginning, my biggest thing is patterns, because I see so much over time. And what I want to continue to grow to do is not even evaluate kind of whether you're actually like in a circle or not, but try to just grow to be a like the best person in terms of, as long as you haven't straight up disrespected or like taken away from my life, that I'm like exceptionally open to being as helpful as I can. My battle becomes time against being productive so I can provide for my own life. So that becomes where even taking a tally too often drains me from reminding myself who came, who left, who's there, who's not. And I think I just, it's this is the touch point of a live, right? You're all welcome to any time to come in and say hi, and everybody knows where to find me for 3 years now, pretty well almost every day. So at that point, I just kind of like, I know who's going to show up for me. And it's not about anyone has to come in and do anything for me, but you can't say I haven't seen you around when you scroll on one of the most popular apps on the, I come across, I hear one person tells me I'm across their page every minute. The next person, oh, I haven't seen you live. So the real story across people's pages, and that's fine. People make their decisions, but that's what I find draining, is to keep an eye on who's really here a ton and who's not, and just try to be as open, because you never know what people went through to take their breaks in between or whatnot. So it's definitely a challenge to always keep a, so to speak, if you want, it would be stressful to keep a roster. I think the other way to do it, I think you all should do it too, is just even go through, and I'm being polite. I'm not saying everyone has to give personal phone numbers, but go through your DMs in an app, go through your text messages. Who is your last 25 numbers you called? Who is the lot, like, whether it be a Snapchat, Instagram, however you communicate, who is your last 25 people? Those are probably closer people to you than you're willing to admit. I think that's, with digital, you can kind of, without stressing about it, you can find ways of figuring out those patterns of who's in your corner, really.
Yeah, there's such a multiplying, like an amplifying factor to this, especially when you have a big following. And it's like, I was going through some of the people that follow me and some of the people that I follow, thinking, well, is this healthy? And it's look at their content, look at their lives. Are they aligned with my core values? Is it something beneficial, or is it constantly focused on the negative, constantly talking about drama, constantly bringing drama into the rooms? Do I want that in my room? And it's just take stock of who's around you, who's in your DMs, that type of thing, what kind of messages they send, whether or not they're interacting with your content, different, but like that's also individual. Some people just don't interact, but it's what they stand for, I guess you can tell a little bit on here without actually having interaction like face to face. So it's kind of like, I went through a couple and unfollowed, just kind of trying to take stock, but it's something that I want to start doing regularly.
Did that help clear your mind a little? Like for you, did that help clear your mind out, that you felt less bound to kind of being tied to people?
It was more something that, like, the initial thing that happened, the topic change, the message that I got, that whole series of event it kind of drove that. What do I need to be doing differently? Do I need to start going through, like, it wasn't that any of those people affected what happened. Like, I was responsible for what happened, but that series of events triggered another way of thinking about it and paying attention to what I was told by some other sources. So that was I don't know if it helped clear my mind, but it definitely made me want to start taking action on the things that I promised myself I would already do. So it was a catalyst for sure.
Well, that's what some people like. I don't know. I think we all feel bound to, like, part of building that online relationship. Please, everybody, understand. And this is a long-term, like, this is a 5-year it was actually longer than 5 years. Like I even when I was on other applications, you follow people because like you click that follow button because you like what they do. You want to, you got to think of it this way. That follow button is like attaching yourself to like the back of that person. And so it's not about whether your back attaches to my back, and like it's not like you like there on this app now. It used to be if you weren't friends, it was very difficult to communicate. That fear should be gone. I just want everyone to authentically interact and follow each other, because those numbers don't really mean anything long term. They just continue to blend out. I'll be honest, as even my own number follows, I'm proud of everything I've done, every piece of content I've made. But it doesn't, those numbers that go across my profile haven't increased my likelihood to get to make better relationships. That hasn't brought up my core. By having all these numbers in an account, it didn't do anything for me personally to be able to achieve a healthier relationship with others. If anything, it just attacked me with more chances of people expecting, and I say this very politely, but that follow back thing is like you're expecting someone to like be friends with you from a feeling. And if you're a live host, that's different. But for just everybody that's like a watcher, like just kind of evaluate that. Like, do I actually like watch their content regularly? Am I actually following what they're doing? Or am I just trying to people please them and taking from myself? Because you disrespect yourself trying to show an artificial sign of respect to that person. And if that person's truly offended by not a button, we're losing our whole point of building truthful, honest, trusting, loyal relationships with each other, because we're pleasing the mind of hitting a button back to make ourselves, to even fill a hole in our own lives. And I think that's like a core part of even something I struggle with, follow me back, and that doesn't build a relationship for me. That already feels forced right from the very beginning. And if I unfollow you, you're going to stop enjoying my content. It feels very forced and not healthy or organic in terms of how can you ever build trust with that person? Because it was never authentic from the second that's that connection, and it wasn't authentic from there. And so I want everybody, even including myself, to just continue to try to think about that stuff, because I think it will lead to more authentic, engaging relationships on the app, which allows your circles to grow stronger.
I agree with that, actually. I think that really well said.
Thanks. So our last, one of the areas I kind of, so we've talked about like the building. We've talked about kind of like what helps, how we wrap around the relationship, how we kind of build relationships, core values, importance. So now let's kind of just like pull the bar back down. What about safeguards? What is like safeguards for you, even yourself, before you enter in a new, even if it's an experience? It doesn't even have to be. It could be with a client, someone online. It could be a business. Like it could be a noun of any sort that you're building a safeguard with. But how do you go about that area of safeguards? I don't know if the dad or Bite Boss, whichever one of you guys. Curious.
I think that on the same, not to answer the question now, but to add to it, like the same thing we were just talking about with, we actually talked about in the beginning, is trust, how we trust. I think we all similarly trust the same way. We trust first. Like it's an open thing. You talk to somebody and you trust them. You trust that person is going to be respectful, and you wait for something to happen to kind of take that trust down. Whereas there's a bar. So very similar to what you said. What are our barriers? Like what are our safeguards that we have set a level of trust initially, whether it be a chat or an interaction face to face, as a standard. And I think that's one of our internal safeguards, but we all trust basically the same way. Initial reaction, we're open, trusting
Well, and so my thinking is, so for those that don't have that, right? So if you don't have that trust and loyalty that you can give to someone right away, it's like we do, right? So how do you go about approaching that in terms of knowing this can happen, this can't, like in terms of protecting yourself from misjudging that situation is kind of where I'm getting at. Like, so what mentality would you approach meetings or getting to know someone or something?
So I guess I start off with my root core value, which is this person a positive, forward-thinking person, or is this person neutral, or is this person negative thinking? So what I mean by that is, if the situation comes into a room, like I go into a live and I'm just like, oh, hey, and then there's some girl like screaming at the top of her lungs at some other person, or some guy screaming at their lungs at another person, and the host does nothing about it. Okay, neutral, right? Now I've taken a step back, right? Because I found that I was disrespected by entering a room and there's a screaming match going on.
Okay.
Right? So that is an example of my very rudimentary first level thought, right? Is analyze the room, see what's going on, and see if it feels with the positive forward root core value that I have. Because that's really the start. Because without that it's literally going to be like, okay, this person's never going to mesh with me. Because I don't want negative energy in my life. I've made that decision 10 years ago, and I have put that past in the dust, and I've just went straight forward for it. And if you don't want to follow, or if you don't have that mentality of that going forward, then you're not going to mesh with me very well. And that's okay. And I'm fine with that. But that's the start of it all for me.
Okay.
I think that answers your question.
Yep. No, for sure. Safeguards that's a difficult topic, right? Safeguards is a big thing, because those are like your bumpers, right?
I get disrespected a lot because of the members of the minor communities that I'm of. People target me all the time, and that is their choice to try to target me, but it's not going to bother me, because I'm just going to be like, okay, that door's closed, and move forward. Right?
That comes with self-confidence, and that's a learned skill. That ties in with boundaries and standards and our bumpers and everything. It's a self-confidence thing. Do you believe that you can truly enforce that, or can that person's opinion inadvertently sway your core beliefs and what you think of yourself just by a comment or an interaction? Is that something that's going to change how you feel in the moment or long term, or are you set? It's not that you're stubborn. Are you set and confident enough that that's not going to affect you? Whereas criticism or an opinion is different than just, something that's thrown at you.
Well, and that's kind of what my boss was like just to hint at, it's like situations where they're not deserving, potentially, in areas where it's not private either, right? Like there's stuff where like I know there's been instances where it's like judgment gets cast because of groups that aren't widely accepted, and that I can attest that's something that like you can be, I think, one of the most confident people in the world, but to be a part, like we're, you know, like myself, like I'm not a part of any minority group, right? That really takes like a grunt or a hit from any sort of jokes or negativity, right? So I mean that I don't know how you would create a safeguard around like stuff like that. So I mean, I that's why I like award by Boss too for like the amount of positivity that comes out, because there's a lot of misjudgment that kind of like bothers me, and people gotta like understand that if nobody, so part of a safeguard for me, so like going into this is why I like segueing into this. So a safeguard for me is I don't have to agree with everything that goes on in your mind. I'm actually happy to not agree with everything that you think of. Like it's actually a pleasure to have areas of discussion. And I have someone on this app that I've co-hosted with for over 3 years. And we have had at the very beginning the most heated, from two calm people that can have energy, we had some heated arguments, and we have just realized that we have some very different opinions on this app about a lot of things. And we know how to judge that and get around that. So part of it is recognizing that if another person, that's like something that like I think of right away. If that person isn't actively oppressing my thoughts, who I am, and trying to change who I am for their own benefit, as long as those things aren't happening, then I'm a happy character to disagree all day with an opinion, because that's what leads us to grow. You know, what makes it hard is when there's because you have a different opinion, you are now less than me. And it's like your experiences and my experiences are different, and we shouldn't be judged for having different opinions. And even if, as long as we don't see things towards a negative direction in either way, we should be able to have our difference in opinion. And I think that's for me that's a huge thing for me that's in my life, because quite often if someone's going to not be able to respect you, they often don't respect themselves either. And that might be a core issue because of just, we know, projection. But
it's the pineapple on pizza debate. It's like that's it there. Pineapple on pizza. You can like pineapple on pizza. That doesn't mean you're wrong.
And do we have a problem now?
Yeah. What are you saying?
I watched an interview that completely changed my thoughts on that. I'm all for the whatever floats your boat, and it was about an actor being interviewed, and he said it was from Inglourious Basterds. Somebody interviewed Christoph Waltz. Christoph, I can't remember his last name. And they said, "How did you portray evil so well?" And he went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "How did you portray evil that well? Like what got you into that mindset? What made you become that character and do it so well?" And he said he wasn't evil. And the core of that was he didn't think he was wrong. Nobody thinks they're wrong. Nobody thinks they're evil. It's not inherent that they're doing it out of evil. They think their cause, their beliefs are correct. And it goes back to the pineapple on pizza. I like it. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but most people don't think that. I like it, and it's the only way, and that's how it should be. That means you're wrong. That's the core thing, right?
Yeah, we can't order pizza together because you're ordering a different pizza than me.
Yeah.
Where you could pick it off and eat it and enjoy that person's company.
Even then, I'd be glad to order them another pizza. Like, you know, if you're that indifferent, or we can do the half and half game now. They do the half topping thing. That's a great idea too, right?
Yep.
And for me, I respect that you have a different thought than I do. If you can come to the table and explain yourself and be like, "This is my point of view because X," I will sit there and I will listen, and I will analyze and respect your opinion. Why? Because you're allowed to have your own opinion, right? It's when you start being like, your opinion is better because, then it becomes a problem. Because then now you're trying to change my point of view and my thought about a topic that I'm set on. You know? If I came to you and I asked you for your opinion and you told me your opinion, that's one thing. You come and you force it on somebody, that's a different thing.
Can we schedule an argument, by the way? Can we schedule one of these so that we have an argument segment?
Oh, we're gonna have to have one of those.
Yeah.
That'll be an offline thing though.
Oh no, I think we need to do that on here so that we see, like, bring up a topic that we know that is controversial, and I think that we need to discuss something like that to see the other, because that's a learning process for us. That's like a friendship bonding building thing, right? Just like you talked about with the person that you co-host with. That's probably made your bond stronger in a lot of ways. So I think that's an important thing, because for the most part we tend to agree a lot with each other on here.
I think that's part of like why the our experiences are slightly different, but the direction is intended to align. So you grab along, because people listening are we're hoping to continue to discuss areas that aren't ever discussed. So that's the focus, right? Is to continue to just give that positive light and the open discussion to all these ongoing, like building an online relationship is a can. I think you could do an entire series on something like that, right? Because of just how deep that really goes from, like we talked about the follow back game, the messages to growing a relationship, to how do you take it outside of the online, how do you, the trust, loyalty over time, making sure that you're safeguarded from all the potential things that can happen because of even, my own experiences. So wide range of stuff that really can go on, and it happens fast. So I think the educative side of hearing these open experiences, even if they're relatively similar, we still have pretty core. So for example, Bite Boss and I both know he puts things in a cube and analyzes, and almost like, here's the problem, and looks around it, right? Whereas for me, I don't really box things up, and it's like almost like a mind map, and I look at things in like a different way, more of like a mesh instead of like a box. But at the same time, our and that's just because we've known each other a while, so I know how we both align that way. That still gets us to new different answers from the same question always. And so that's what I like about trying to continue to do this in a way where when we bring up those positive forms, you can bring up one topic and we continue to grow through even just like the discussion, and then that allows the audience to get touched with, hey, this is something I haven't thought about, even myself, from an experience of, they might not be an avid viewer, they might have just came on the app. Entertainment in itself, I think there's a lot of important things, because these elements are applicable anywhere, is the intention. We just see a fast pace. There's 1.8 billion people on TikTok. 1.8 billion. So we have what, a fifth of the population of the planet is scrolling this app. So if you don't get a fast-paced view of the world on this, I don't know where else you would, right?
And that's only the people that have downloaded it. There's other people that just see it online without, and you can scroll through without having an account.
Right? So that's the whole purpose of, there's a lot of people that float around that probably have similar experiences, and there's a lot of struggles that come with it, especially long term. And I think this is probably like a really healthy thing for everybody to hopefully grow, to continue to listen to, whether it's online or offline.
That was one of my first questions when I saw in the chat, the Discord there, that topic, so we're going longer than 2 hours, or we're doing multiple, But that's something we can always circle back around to and touch base on different segments of it. That's the great part of this. Like it's being recorded. It's going to be on YouTube. We can watch it back and go, hey, I really like that segment of it. We should retouch on that.
Yeah, and I think that's like really important with this is the replay value. I mean,
Yeah.
the awareness is a big thing that, you know, comes to my mind when you go to slowly bring up topics. And that's why it's nice that the way the dynamic is you know, to bring the different levels of experience and see how that changes also like our outlook.
Yeah, teasing the different thought is what I enjoy the most. Right? Is because the both of you think differently than me, and I also hope that the viewers also get that same kind of thought of, hey, I didn't think about the topic in this way, and that's kind of like the trigger point for me.
It's definitely perspective. Like hopefully, like we can't see everything from everybody else's perspective without some sort of input. But I like to think I'm pretty open minded, and I look from different perspectives if I don't see something that is positive. Like when you look at a negative situation, how do you change your perspective on it to spin the positive? Like you're supposed to embrace the bad parts in your life. Like me being sick, I have a fever now. I was sitting here with an ice pack last night on live trying to get through and struggling, and that's part of the reason I was, you know, not available for certain things. I was coming down with something, didn't realize it. Like I'm sweating profusely and, you know, just getting through it. But it's like, thank goodness I'm sick, because now when I feel better, I'm going to feel so much better that I feel good. Like that's an amazing thing. It seems trivial to certain people to have that different perspective on things, but if you don't look at bad things in your life that way, like if you don't train yourself to do it, then those bad things become what you concentrate on and overwhelming. So it's something that, like, I'm grateful for being sick. It's not something you would normally hear somebody say, but I am thankful that I'm sick because I know how much better I'm going to be when I feel better, and I still have to function. I'm pushing through to try and function normally while I'm sick because I need to be here to do this. This is something that I said I would do. So it's a constant learning, building process, just like perspective. How do you look at things differently without it affecting your core values? Like, how do you keep that focus that you've always had that is building and healthy for you, but the ability to look at it from a different point of view so that it still benefits and helps you grow? It's important to assess relationships like that and people.
For me, there are bad experiences. Heck, I'm still sitting in this room right now where I should be somewhere else. I look at them as opportunities to grow and to realize that something wasn't handled correctly, and that you got more of like a, hey, this happened because of this. And, you know, in this situation, like, you got sick. What could you think of? You know, like, I'm looking in your situation when you just said that. Well, okay, you could have communicated, right? You could have said, hey, I'm not feeling well. You know, hey, I have something just off. You know, like, those are all opportunities, right, to change that negative thought into a positive thought. And like that's kind of how I approach things, is like learning experiences and opportunities to grow, right? Every negative experience, no matter what it is an opportunity, no matter what, right? Even in your workspace or whatever, you did something wrong, then you analyze, you educate, and you move forward, right? There's no reason to dwell on something that's negative. There isn't. There are zero reasons for it other than getting stuck in your own head about it.
Yeah, I've learned not to focus on the negative, and it's very difficult in the moment, but it's a shift, and it's a learned skill. It's a constant battle. Like when things happen and it's bad, and you're like, this sucks, and then you go, okay, I can't do anything about it. It's already done. What do I do now? And relationships are like that too.
They sure are.
Like when they start or when they end or whatever happens in the middle, like relationships ending. Like I'm here alone now because the relationship ended. Same similar situation to what you just like. You're in a spot now. You should be somewhere else. I think I should be somewhere else. Do I focus on that? No. Did it end? Yeah. What do I do now? I keep moving forward and concentrating on the positive things, right? I'm here now. If I wasn't here now, would we be doing this? No, like look at all the awesome stuff that happened because of the things that did happen previously.
Reflection is important there too, right? Reflecting on that whole, like your past. What could I have done differently to maybe, better communicate, or those types of things. Like those are all opportunities, right? Relationships and friendships, they're two-way streets. They're not one way, not at all. They are two-way streets, which means, for example, in one of my relationships, I didn't properly communicate my feelings, for example, right? That relationship ended because I failed to communicate with my partner. I failed to say, hey, I'm feeling upset because of this. And on the two-way communication, I failed on that part in that past relationship. That's something I learned a while ago. And a failure in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or, a partner, business relationship, there is always a part that's going to be on both parties. Whether it's 90% them and 10% you, or 90% you and 10% them, or 50-50, or whatever the percentage may be, there's still a part of opportunity of growth, right? And I know that's hard to hear sometimes, right? That like, hey, I had a part in this, because you did,
That's that pattern recognition, like you touched on originally, both of you actually. It's recognizing the patterns that we create, like the lack of communication. I'm guilty of that as well in a previous relationship, but I've also experienced it. It's that boundaries and like barrier to entry or like standards that we hold up, and it's all like, how do we move those as we progress in life? What did we learn? Like, we don't focus on what happened, but we damn sure take stock of it and make sure that we don't create the same problems and patterns from making the same mistakes. You better learn from your mistakes and understand that they were mistakes. How do you stop from doing them over and over? Because it does affect you directly and the people around you, and it causes your relationships to affect you in those ways, because now you're doing the same thing, attracting the same people that you had those issues with and made those mistakes.
So a tool that I've learned over my life that I apply to relationships, both romantically, friendships, and business relationships, is the following. I take a whiteboard and I eliminate my emotion from the whiteboard, and I put down traits. This person had this type of trait. This person had that type of trait. They were a great communicator. They were really good in English. They're, amazing cook. They were great in finances. They were, they knew how to formulate problems, whatever the list you can think of is. And then I start drawing lines of the similarities between all of them. Because what that showed me was the things that I was attracted to, the things that I saw as constant flaws between everyone that I knew. The things that I could improve myself on. Those were shown to me on a whiteboard. And I do this on everyone that's an exit, like an exit interview, sort of speak. I draw the same board and I reflect throughout my entire life back as much as I can remember. And usually the outcome ends up being like a better understanding of why the door got closed, and maybe 3 or 4 things that I can improve myself on just by doing that simple list. Sounds kind of silly, but it's something that I learned, and it works well for me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's a good reflection, right? It allows you to reflect in a non-judgmental way about your life and all of the things that affect it, right? Friendships, your relationships, the people you run into. And I found for me, it was a healthy way of being able to have that understanding that I didn't have before.
So that's pretty awesome.
Don't judge.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of like one of those, I do say this often and I advocate for this, but in your mind, when you think of someone, when you think of anything, right, your emotions wrap themselves around them pretty quick. Even when you write out a scenario that you're anxious or paranoid about, and you write down the steps that as the event happened, the actual this happened, then this happened, you take the emotion out of it and just write down the what happened, even if it's the where, right? But you're not worried about the why or how or anything. You just write that down, and then you sometimes realize what you composed, and once you see it without the emotions as a part of the mix in your brain, because your gut feels, your brain processes. And so your brain writes down these 4 or 5 events, and then you look at these things and you go, well, that's not even believable. Like that's one heck of a story. I don't even know if someone's made a movie out of this. Like I'd be a prime director if this actually plays out, right? And so we get lost in a paranoia of, we're desensitized by a lot of media, right? So it causes us to create some pretty wild scenarios that are almost 99% unlikely to happen, right? So we assume the worst, and then that can just disrupt our baseline, right? That's, I think, a big thing that, when you're doing that comparison, that whiteboard, whatever, the physical portion of that allows you to actually remove the emotion from it. Because it's hard to put, they went to the store at 2 p.m. It's hard to put emotion into a short sentence. You just can't. No one is going to be able to articulate in a short, and then you can see those events and peel them apart, and you'll figure out it's completely unbelievable. And I think that would save a lot of scenarios, and I suffer from that often, where you will get a build-up, past events, emotions, and they topple over each other. They make for one heck of a snowball, and you can't see around it. But it doesn't even exist. You made that problem all on your own. And so I think that's something that for me, that continues to tie back into what I said at the beginning, is I have a hard time with patterns, because I see and have seen so many patterns that I have to peel my emotions out of the actual events and write down, hey, this happened, this is how I look at it. And part of that is that 24-hour rule that allows me to physically pull my in the moment emotions away from the actual event to give it a proper positive judgment. So I think I compliment in that type of skill, where you whiteboard how you feel to remove the emotions that cloud your baseline of judgment.
And trust me, it's not easy to do at the beginning. Like when you first
It's a skill.
It is
It's a skill because
hard.
your pen will not move the first time you go to write. So it's a translation, right? From your mind, from your emotions to paper. And that translation is removing the emotions from the events. Transcription maybe is the better. You're transcribing.
Translation and transcription, like it is a documentation of the events and how you see them, and the fact that like when you saw them at the time and how you're thinking about them now. So it's both. It's a transcribe and yeah, like it. I think it fits into both. Like, and it's super important to do the emotional aspect of it. And it sounds very cold, but you have to eliminate your emotions when you dive into anything new. Actually, it's very hard. Not eliminate, but make sure you take stock of and control so that you're not reacting with emotion. It is thought. One of the very difficult skills that I've been working on is controlling the emotions. Make sure your emotions don't cause you to make decisions. Don't ever, go shopping when you're hungry. Don't ever, react to somebody when you're mad. Don't create a new relationship when you're super happy and high about, life in general. You need to have that solid baseline of emotional control in order to interact so that you have healthy interactions and healthy things throughout your life. And it's friggin' hard, but like whiteboarding stuff is a really good process. Like that's like just so you have something to look at and go, well, how did I come up with that? Like what you said, like where did that come from? Like, how is that even a real thing? And what kind of emotion was I feeling to come up with that shit? Like that's important stuff to take stock of when you look at it and go, what was I thinking? Like, and then not do that pattern again, not react that way again.
You also learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
Like I keep this beside me, and this has all the questions for today and all the like music and thoughts and everything. Like I'm constantly writing stuff down, but I didn't think to write what you talked about down. So I'm gonna have to get more notebooks.
That's why we record these, though, so you can kind of play it back later.
Right?
Oh, it's in it. That's something for me that has it's when you said it's not something that's easy. And so if you're listening to something like that and you're starting to just get to that point where you're like, hey, I got to start writing down some of my thoughts and my ideas and whatnot. Excuse me. Give a very bland filter to it on your way out. Try to remember that you're going to read it back and kind of forget your state of mind that you're in while you wrote it. That's the biggest thing, I think, for note taking in my entire life. I never really assumed. I'm going to remember this later comes from I'm going to recall the emotional state that I was in while I wrote this. That's part of it. The environment that you wrote things down has to be the same to recall. And that's part of memory. And that is something that if you don't write things down in that clear mind to help expand, I don't think the recall is going to be effective either. So, if that's something you're going to try to do it as minimally as possible to get yourself going with that, to whiteboard and to evaluate problems. But remember, it's, and I think I work at that every time I do it, but it's a skill that not only when you're writing things down, but on the recall stage is really important. That recall stage becomes more influential because everyone has looked at something you've written in the past. It's happened at least once in everyone's life. You look back and you're, okay, I know what I wrote. I can read what I wrote. You can read the words, you read the sentences and you're like, this is my writing? You don't even recognize your writing, yet alone the sentence you wrote. We've all done that where you're like, what kind of mood was I in that I wrote things either super neat or super messy or super outside of my normal? And so that recall stage changes just from that. I think that's an important thing to recall.
Lost in translation.
Exactly, right? But that's part of, if you're going to do that whiteboard thing, you know, and you're not taking, you know, or for your sake, right, a notebook, you know, I bet you flip halfway to the beginning of the book, you'll start, you know, it's not going to be as good memory as going from today backwards, right? Right? And that's all of us, though.
Yeah.
Right? That's going to be an all of us thing. So just to recall that those events and those things that you write down have to be written down as honestly and truthfully as you can in that moment, because you won't recall the mood, atmosphere, and everything that typically went on when you put that material down.
The same thing can be said about like GPT prompts and stuff. When you look back through the history of the prompts, you're like, what was I thinking? What did I need help with when I said that? You kind of look back and go, huh.
It's a good thing, though, because that allows you to grow as well. It's just one of those where you're in the process of documenting those things for the benefit of yourself. You must be honest. You have to be honest with yourself.
The most common person we lie to is ourselves. That's what I made a post about that a while ago, and I thought, geez, isn't that funny? Like we think about lying to our friends, and there's a consequence. We lie to family members, co-workers, whatever it is. We make excuses, little white lies, but then, you know, we promise ourselves to do something and we don't do it. Well, it's the same. You know, you're going to work out, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to do this, you're going to focus on this, you're going to learn this, and then we don't. That's the exact same thing. We do it to ourselves more than anybody else. So the fact that you just said we need to be 100% honest when we're writing that stuff down is so important. Like, don't sugarcoat it. Don't try and bullshit around or anything like that. Write down and be brutally honest about everything. And when you're talking to yourself, positively, but be honest. Like, does this benefit? What do I do to make sure that I stop lying to myself and doing that pattern? Because that relates to everything in life, not just the relationships that we build. Stop lying to yourself and tell yourself what you're doing.
If you can't be open and honest with yourself, right? How are you going to be loyal and trusting to others, right? If you can't count on yourself. And I think that's, you know, we all aren't going to be perfect in that area. Don't, like, that's a wandering, but you got to hold yourself high to that extent that if you can't trust yourself to do the things you're going to do and be loyal to the promises that you make yourself, how are you going to be able to promise that to other people? And that's a big question for me every day, right? You know, I'm going to get this done by the end of the day. And if I don't, you know, I try to be a man of my word. Why didn't that get accomplished? Is there a reason? Is there, you know, but you have to be open with yourself, or else you get into this self-destruction, right? Where, you know, you're not being, that's the same. You make goals that are unachievable for yourself. You'll fail yourself and you feel like you're not showing up for yourself. But
that's why I focus more on the trait than the situation, because a trait you can't lie about, right? You can't, like, to yourself, like, you can't. A trait is a trait.
Yeah.
You know, they yell, they this, they that, right? You can't. There's no lying there. And if you start with that, then the other part comes more easy, at least in my opinion. Because then if you start with that, then you're focusing only on an object, instead of like but this is said, but that was said, or this is, you know, I was sick this day. You know, it just takes that whole part of it out. Sorry about that.
Uncontrollable.
This is awesome.
The doggies love you.
Sure do.
No, they're already three. We're our fourth week, and they're already pretty well adjusted. It's okay.
I try.
Do you guys have any closing statements or anything you guys wanted to kind of start wrapping it up? Anything you kind of wanted to say?
Yeah, I had a question that I wanted to ask both of you. And my question is, I'll start this with the dad. I wanted to know when you first, I'm trying to word this right, when you first met me, we're talking about that whole like building the trust and building the friendship thing. At what point did you feel that I was your friend?
Sounds like you're doing the helicopter, buddy.
You just keep flapping her ears at me. It's okay, baby.
That's tough because we didn't interact until like in boxes until our first co-host here. So in the chat, that's a tough one. Like there was a lot of back and forth in the chat, which seemed like we were, like aligned on the same beliefs and stuff.
Okay.
That's a really tough question.
I know. I wanted to make you think.
Let me stew on that.
No problem.
I don't think I have it was just a build over time. Like it was like I say, let me stew on that, and I keep talking about it. But like that's hard to put there's nothing that sticks out in my mind specifically as to what was said in our interaction. But I think it was just that baseline of trust. I'm trusting that this person is good based on the environment, where I met you, what was said initially, and then it just built from there. And then I think it grew more and more as soon as we got to co-host. Even you not being on camera didn't matter. Just hearing your voice and hearing what your opinions were and what was said was enough for me to want to say, I'm going to continue with this. A lot like when I came in and you didn't see me in your room, Zen. I wasn't in your box yet. I was just listening. And I'm like typing as fast as I can. And you're like, why don't you just come up in a box? I'm like, okay. And that was a lot easier, but it was things being said. It was different with you because I could see your facial expressions, hear your tonality and stuff like that. With Bite Boss, it was literally just reading messages and thinking. And of course, there's emotion involved there in
Oh yeah.
how I reacted to it. But it was, and I've tried to do this more and more, not react emotionally, but take it for what it is and think, is this a person that I want to align with, and do I benefit them as well? That type of thing. I don't know if it was our first or our second interaction. I think it was the second time we chatted. What you were chatting about when I was just watching the chat and I hadn't said anything yet. What you were talking to Zen about and interacting with Jules. So I think that was because a lot of times we lurk and we just watch people, and it could be just we swipe in and we don't say anything yet because we're doing something else, or we're like doing the refollow thing and adding gifts or tapping or whatever it is. And yeah, I'm going to throw that back at you. You know that, right? So same question, and to both of you, because that's an amazing question. I hope you weren't going to ask him, and I just.
No, I asked the both of you for a reason, because I wanted the audience to think about it too. That's why I asked this question. Who's on?
So to everybody, so this comes from just also the length of time with my like involvement with social media. I have a very specific way about going about how I live my life because I have a strong online presence. So I've watched many creators over time have like a lack of privacy. So I'll start it off with that I'm a very hard person to go from a very strong acquaintance to like a friend. I think that's like the best way. That doesn't change how I treat people, but it just changes the length of time you need to spend in my life for you to hit the green in the acquaintance and then the flick to the friend. The building of trust and loyalty isn't overnight for me. So you've been around in my life now for well over a year and a half. Well over. Almost it'll be 2 years before we know it. But just the presence of being every day in my room doesn't determine a viewer into a friend. A friend looks to build another friend in even times when they're not sure what they're going to be able to even give to you yet. And I think that stands for a lot, because a lot of us are great at being a buddy to an acquaintance, but to hit the friendship level takes, for me, a different level of dedication. Because to take away what I do seriously, aside from all the fun, that starts getting into like the friendship level, because you have to know why I'm here every day and really have an understanding. I think it was showed a strong light when I wasn't even sure if this was right for me. That's when I determined that we were friends. It was probably closer to I'd say like August last year, September, where it was like, you need a helping hand when people are walking out for no reason. And that shows the difference between someone that's there for their own benefit and someone that's there to build, like, to help someone else out with the best that they can do without taking fully away from them. That's a friend. Because as a friend, you have to be able to look after yourself to take care of the other person and vice versa. And that's when that's when the switch changed, was because it wasn't just, I'm kind of here for my own enjoyment anymore. Like, what can I do to help you? And it's not the offering of help, it's that shows character traits. And so those character traits become a strong point. So you turned into someone that became more of a friend because you yourself wasn't sure what you could benefit necessarily back from it, like from our friendship, other than obviously, like, you know, we align with interests. But past that, you rule out the potential kickback. And then that kind of changes from being an acquaintance to a friend, because there's going to be times where I can't give to you and you can't give to me as a friend, and you need to be there for each other. And typically acquaintances and buddies are the ones that go quiet in those times. And I've seen that over the past 6 to 8 months in this room, where people have kind of played around with that. And you've always, very proudly, I can say that though, but like, you become like one of my best friends because of that. Because it's just a straight up trait. You can rely on each other to treat each other honestly, independent of our current situation. That's the best way to, that's like the final hit and blow. So thank you.
Thank you. And to respond to that, the first time for me, I'll start with Zen, was I showed you a place of vulnerability, and something in my life happened, and everything that I tried to do was like a force to not, like, it was almost like a pressure of like not to go do this thing. And I was just venting it that day, and then you actually came with a solution to me, and I didn't even think of it. Like, I didn't even cross my mind at that moment at all. And then like that one simple action showed me that you actually cared, and that you, like, even from a place of weakness, you showed strength. And you showed me that same strength. And at that moment, you lifted me up from where I was and elevated that whole situation, which turned it into a fantastic thing. So from that moment onward, you moved from like just a social guy, like a media guy that I hang out with and like a buddy, to an actual friend, and like deepened our relationship from that point forward.
Okay, awesome.
And the dad,
Hey, Bite, can I just interrupt you for 2 seconds?
of course.
The ear flapping, my guy does that, and I have to take Kleenex and clean out his ears. Because, yeah.
That's the next thing I'm about to go do with some hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, it's and they do the it's great to watch, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. It started about 30 minutes ago, so I've been here.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew, like some people don't. They're just like, I don't know why the dog's doing it, and they just kind of scratch the ears and they're done with it. But yeah.
No, it's an imbalance, and it has to do with that whole like she needs a bath too, and she just doesn't want to do it. She's gonna have to force it. But yes, that is the thing I'm going to be doing next. For you, it was a battle that you came into Zen's community with, and the observations about the motivating the community is what really kind of struck you apart from others that I saw. You had motivation of positivity, and you were trying to be there as like a let's go guys, let's like that positive energy kind of thing, and that's what struck you different to me than everyone else. Yeah, so that answers that question. Both of you. Any other final thoughts from either of you?
It's been another great week, guys.
Amazing week, amazing.
It's like an hour 45 pretty well every time. So I started closing it up like 20 minutes ago. No, it's awesome.
I just wanted to share that thought with the community as well, and as we were talking about friendships and that kind of thing, I wanted them to understand how we got to where we are as a group, as well, so that there was an understanding, and they can ask themselves those same questions. That's kind of what I was trying to get to there.
I think that's pretty awesome.
Can I add something for next week that I think would also be beneficial, similar to what we just talked about? Something random about each of us, like little known facts type thing that we're okay sharing, obviously, that maybe we haven't shared before in our lives and to people.
Okay, let's definitely we'll have an offline call and do some discussion about what we want to talk about next week, and give them a little bit of a surprise. Get everybody to keep tuning in, wondering what we're going to talk about.
I'll be there this time.
Awesome. Any closing statements?
Just to remember that you're all worth it. No matter what's going on in your life, whether it's hard or struggling or super positive or sitting at a beach, just remember to take a few minutes for yourself and just to remind yourself that you're here for a reason and you have goals, and just to understand that wherever you are in your path, that you're worth it.
Love that.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to you guys, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody always, because your time is something that you never get back. And the fact that you guys take the time to do this, and the viewers take the time to come watch, whether it's now or on YouTube or whenever, and all the time that they spend coming into our rooms and saying the things. it's our time, right? And people don't understand the value of your time. So thank you for everybody for taking time, because you never get that time back. And just gratitude for everybody. Amazing. Like, I can't say enough. Just the amount of time that's spent. Time taken, prepare, talk, chat, gift, everything, tap. It's people's time, right?
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for taking the time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, just one of those things, everyone, that just remember to be loyal to yourself, trust yourself, and the biggest thing is show up for yourself. If there's anyone you're going to show up for in life, it's got to be you. Can't end the day, the week, the month not happy or this word, but without taking from others. You can't disrespect yourself by the end of the week. No one is, and I posted a video about this, but no one, as much as we care about others' success, no one's coming to really do that checkup the way that you really need it. And that's on you. And so just make sure you trust in yourself, show up for yourself, and remember that you're going to be the one that's going to accomplish those goals at the end of the day. And you can, but you got to do it. And those small little goals are going to add up to such big gains long term. I don't know how to say that more, that the small little steps will add up to such big things. And look back 2 or 3 years ago and tell me you haven't become a better self today. Everybody, thank you. I appreciate all your support, your love, your viewership. Wouldn't happen without it. I'm beyond words with how well this is continuing to go, and I'm very excited to continue. I want to thank the dad and Bite Boss for, always bringing up their time. It's offline time and online time. And thank you to both of you. Thanks to the audience. Thanks to everybody. And we're going to see you next week.
Next week.
And I'll have some recordings up, everybody. So just so you guys know, recordings are going to continue to go up, and I'll have a link in the bio for you guys. And if you need help, you can come check in through the week and ask me where to find it. Everybody have a great Sunday.
Take
Smiles,
care, guys.
everyone. See you later. We'll see you guys later on today. Much love.
Yeah.